So this video is about another video that's been posted on YouTube by Mark Rober, who is a fantastic content creator. As of recording this video, it has 13 million views. It went to #1 on trending. It is called Pranks Destroy Scam Callers, and as the title suggests, it is about pranking and exposing a scam call center. Now, I don't want this video to be seen as an attack or trying to expose anything along those lines. It's more of an open question and a discussion about this type of content and what it means when it's delivered to such a broad audience. I can't help but feel there might be some people that want to either emulate and replicate the success of such a video by doing the same type of thing, or people who may want to join in what they see as a good moral act and replicate some of the things that they've seen in the video. Now, these people, as I may refer to them as, I'm typically thinking of being less naive and savvy around how to navigate such a tricky area. As you can see in the video, Mark Rober, I think, did all of this quite gracefully, got the authorities involved, and took fair measures to protect certain people's identities. Maybe not in other places too, and that's where we come into a little bit of a grey area, and there's a lot of grey area around these scam call centers, I think. It's very easy to see why we can rally against them and accept the form of harassment they have received, because these are people that are targeting other vulnerable people and taking their money from them, and we pretty much all agree that these are just awful and that we don't want scam call centers. Now, there are two grey areas here. One of them I would think as the vigilantism, which is sort of displayed through creating this video, and the other one is the people that work in these scam call centers. It's very easy just to think they know what they're doing and that they're in the wrong. However, if we think about one of those philosophical questions like, is stealing from the poor when you are rich the same as stealing a loaf of bread to feed your starving family? Some of the people in these call centers might hate what they do. They might have to take this job up because there are no other circumstances in which for them to do so. And that is one of the classic grey areas where I think the harassment some of these people receive might not be quite as warranted as you initially think, but I think this is a lesser point overall. The other grey area is the vigilantism, where there is crime being committed and the correct procedure most of the time should be to hand things like this over to the authorities, right? But people are taking it into their own hands and going after these scam callers, and for the most part that feels right. It's like a moral stride that we can all get behind. I've actually watched plenty of these sorts of videos before, and it's not really crossed my mind until I saw this one, because this one goes to quite some lengths to harass people inside of the call centers. There's moments in the video where they show chats and numbers, which I was not entirely sure was the best way to go about doing this, but you know, along the whole process they were contacting the authorities, passing over information, working in collaboration with them, and all of that seemed really good. But once it then becomes something that we all get to see, this opens it up to being imitated, and I don't think that should be the blame of someone like Mark Rober or other people involved, that you can be imitated and imitated poorly. But there will be a, let's say, more naive portion of the audience that may choose to do things like this, have been inspired by this video, and then go about it the wrong way. Now, so far as I point things out and try and explain my thoughts, I'm basically asking a lot of questions. I'm not trying to say that I've got the wrong or right idea about this. I'm trying to create more of a conversation to understand this, because in the back of my mind, it does concern me that some people can see things like this, take it into their own hands and get it completely wrong. Maybe accidentally harassing people that aren't even involved, or getting the wrong idea about what to do, or things going to more of an extreme. The pranks in this video were relatively harm, releasing cockroaches and using dyes in hand sanitizer so that people, you know, get a load of ink on their hands.
I want everything I do to be exciting, but at the end of the day, relatively harmless.
But someone might try to replicate this and take things to the next level, which could end up looking rather ugly. There are certainly worse things that people could do than we've seen in this video, and I wouldn't want to speculate on how far that could go. But of course those actions would be that of the people that conducted them, and in no way do I think that should blow back on someone like Mark Rober, but I just can't help but feel this form of open vigilantism does have some sort of downside to it. And when I go into the video's comments and I see the amount of praise for the video, I didn't see a lot of people perhaps thinking that there could potentially be a downside to this kind of content. And again, I'm not going to say that there is and that, you know, Mark Rober's done wrong here, but it's all about creating a little bit of conversation. And I also think that having a conversation about this may make some people think twice or just have a broader idea of what they should do or what their participation in this is. Because someone who was thinking, yeah, I'm going to learn how to do all of this hacking and go after these scam callers may realize that, oh, actually, perhaps I'm not the best suited person to do this, or maybe I had some ideas to take things to the next level and not thought about the consequences of that. So really this video is just in the spirit of bringing these ideas to people so that, you know, we can better navigate this space. So I guess the thing that I wanted to talk about, we'll jump into it, right? So I've had some thoughts about this Mark Rober video that went out, and I in no way want this to be negative towards Mark and his content. I think the guy makes great content, very educational, he's got a good like attitude and spirit, but this latest thing is targeting scam call centers, essentially harassing them, pranking them. It's very easy to look at that and think it's all good, and I think he goes about it the right way. You know, does things that to me don't really like tread in any immoral territory, let's say, but it's a form of like vigilantism, and what I'm concerned about is like a copycat effect, because people like to emulate success on YouTube. So when you got a successful video of you pranking a scam call center, you may, you know, foster some imitation copies from people that want to do the same thing. So Balaj has had a strong dislike against Rober's latest video. Interesting. I looked through the comments and like all the good stuff was just everywhere, and I couldn't find many negativity in there. There are also plenty of scam baiters on YouTube, and Kit Boga also here on Twitch. So like people who stream and do like the scam baiting stuff live. Interesting. Yeah, I've seen this stuff before and I've like enjoyed the content and not really thought about it twice, but something about Mark's video just made me think twice about it this time. So Randy says that scam baiters are great. Yeah. Seen the video and said the same thing to my wife. I don't agree with vigilantism, but what they do to people, especially 65 plus people, is terrible. It's a very grey area. Yeah, it's definitely a grey area, and one I think that tends to add up with like what they're doing being pretty much acceptable by most people. I kind of felt like they're potentially doing the right thing. But the thing that concerned me, that made me think maybe not, is that they're doing it for an audience. And sometimes your audience can be naive, misguided, somewhat ignorant. What things are acceptable socially is different from people to people, and sometimes people get it really wrong. And you know, what happens when someone sees this, decides to do the same thing, take it into their own hands, and they go too far and someone gets hurt or injured, or you know, that's what I was more concerned about. And I don't think that, you know, I'm not saying that means that Mark's accountable and in the wrong. I just feel like there is this uncomfortable thing about it. You know, you're taking things into your own hands, you're doing that for an audience, and not everyone in that audience is as smart and on the right beat, so to speak, as you might be, have the right way of handling it. It could potentially go in nasty directions. There's also the fact that just because you work in a scam call center doesn't exactly mean you like doing what you do. Some people take jobs because they have no other choice, right? Don't want to forget these diamonds, just going to grab those quickly. But they did shut down the centers for a little bit, so I guess that's good, says Walker. Yeah, the thing with vigilantism is that when you have an authority, as opposed to a vigilante, there tends to be rules, structures, laws in place where all the pitfalls of trying to deal with the people that do wrong have been ironed out, you know? Is it right to kill someone because they work in a scam call center? Most of us are going to say no, right? So like there are laws there, we've been through this before, and through various means we have figured out the ways to navigate these situations, and that's what, you know, the authorities are there for. And the vigilantism doesn't have all of that. And so mistakes are probably easier to be made. You know, the judgment calls aren't explicitly agreed upon as a society. You know, you can see how they weigh up differently. So, you know, this form of vigilantism for entertainment, in my mind, it becomes a bit more consequential because of how people can then choose to do the same things and potentially do it wrong. You can also see what he does and think for yourself that he's doing it wrong. I happen to think that for the most part they got it right. I'm just worried about what happens when, you know, some young kids who look up to his channel and what he does get the wrong idea about how they could do this themselves. And someone gets hurt or things go too far. That's a valid concern, but I think many people simply don't have the ability and resources to pull something off like that. Maybe I am underestimating, says Ardennis. They might not, and that might be part of the problem, right? When you don't have access to those things, you might have access to other things. I think Arden makes a good point. There aren't so many people trying to be Batman. Yeah, there might not be a lot of people even trying. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that should invalidate the concern. That definitely shouldn't invalidate the concern, but it might be a fair point. Gross JR says the authorities are absolutely corrupt. That's been made obvious over the past 2+ years. I don't know where that's coming from because, I haven't really followed anything along those lines, but I don't know, throwing accusations of government institutions being corrupt, that's a whole different kettle of fish right there. And if they are corrupt, it doesn't pass the point that it's still the right way to do things. It's just got to be done without the corruption, I guess. I think this issue honestly goes a bit broader to a lot of content out there that might be dangerous for copycats like prank channels, says Walker. Yeah, it would. It definitely would. It was such a well-received video, and yet it just made me a little bit uncomfortable. Just the sort of knowledge that this could be interpreted incorrectly. Amateur hackers might get themselves in a lot of trouble because they are dangerous people behind those schemes and they don't like to lose money, says Skyfighter. There's a good point. You can try and emulate what they do and get it wrong. Get yourself in trouble. Walker76 says the scammers talked about violence and killing the people in Mark's video, so I worry about potential copycats getting seriously hurt. Yes, that's a fair point. They did use some violent, unsavory language, which it's easy to just think of that as being how people talk online because anonymity gives everyone space to go over the top a bit. A Business Insider article talked about how the Telegram group for the scammers called for Mark Rober's team to be shot on site. They have screenshots. They knew they were in the area. Yes. Yeah, I remember that bit. Again, it's quite easy to just think of it as a empty threat, but sometimes there might be weight behind these threats, It's Scowl117 says there's a fine line between vigilantes and criminals. Yep, that's another thing. Some of the things they did in the video may be considered criminal, infiltrating or hacking other people's personal data, sharing it. There's other things too. That's a very good point. Belage42 says, I feel like pranking call centers employees is not the right way of combating organised crime. Yeah, I felt a little bit of empathy in a way towards them too. We don't really know their stories. The further up the chain you go, the more devious it seems. But again, I prefer for authorities to deal with these situations rather than vigilantes, Another thing that concerned me too, these call centers tend to be in India, and it always worries me that some people will infer some sort of racist way of looking at that. Sometimes people think the actions of a small group of people in a country will therefore represent the broader population, which is just not fair, really. There are various economic factors that have led to these call centers being there, and it worries me that something like that might incite that too. Convoy says, how do you feel about Mark's videos with the package thieves? Yeah, with the package thieves, it felt so simple. You steal something and you get pranked, right? But it's definitely made me think a little bit more about that. It never really crossed my mind much until I saw this latest one. It was such a big operation, and it just pulled in so many more factors. It really got me thinking and made me a little uncomfortable, I guess, along the way.
You've made it to the end of the video, so if you'd like to keep listening to my thoughts and opinions, then YouTube reckons that you might like one of these videos. So have a look at the screen, give one of them a click, and thanks for watching.